Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank the team here, Encore Healthcare and the Ramsey Hotel. Have they not been great? Good morning, Tennessee. Has this not been an awesome conference? Also, I would like to say special thanks to the date of Saturday, October 15th, 2022. Tennessee 52, Alabama 49. A great college football day. Also, reminder, go David. Sorry, Goliath. Growing up in Michigan, my first awareness of Tennessee was Davy Crockett in the introduction to smoking prevention. And along that way, has anyone ever heard of Smoky the Bear? Okay. Did anyone know why Smoky the Bear and his wife got a divorce? Any takers? Every time she got hot, he beat her with a shovel. That's what our father of Breathe Strong, Nick Jones, used to call a groaner. Okay. Requirements. There we go. Okay. Our Lung Heart Self-Step Guide is an electronic version at this time. The 2021 version is still available. I have about 9 copies left when we were called COPD Breathe Strong. I'll be here throughout the day, and anybody who wants these last 9, I'd be glad to give them away. They're a little bit different than I'll be presenting than is available on our website. But I want to give you a tour today of who we are. And it started in 2017 with COPD Breathe Strong guides based on 8 years of community workshops, numerous support groups in Arizona, Georgia, and Florida especially. Groups like the Airheads in the Villages, Florida, the Oxygenarians honoring Dr. Thomas Petty in DeLand, Florida, and also the Banner Desert Hospital Support Group in Phoenix, Arizona. Also, virtually, we've supported the North Side Atlanta Pulmonary Banner Support Group with education video presentations and mutual partnering together virtually. Our champion and the father of Breathe Strong is Nick Jones. Nick Jones, we are honored to have had his leadership as a patient advocate. Just to be clear, our goal is to serve the patient education, but also to mentor the respiratory therapist in whatever setting you find yourself. As a navigator, a transitional coach, a pulmonary function tech, in SNFs, anywhere, we want to serve you through these education guides that you can become more familiar with to assist your patients and serve your patients. Now, Nick, I met through, in 2010, I had the honor to spend 3 hours in Miami, Florida with John Walsh, the founder of the COPD Foundation and Alpha One Foundation. And during that time, John was an Alpha One patient himself. He got his infusion therapy during our dialogue that day. And he encouraged me, Bob, I really would like you to help us here as a volunteer with the COPD Foundation. And what we'd like to do is have you get familiar with Nick and what he's doing up in the villages. And it was through John that I met Nick. And we lost Nick in 2015 as he reached the age of 80, 26 years from the start of his cardiopulmonary health journey. While we lost John in 2017, and we want to honor them both today and continue to partner and grow together as we're able to breathe strong. Our Breathe Strong team includes volunteer patients and healthcare professionals. And a core group is our volunteer team of our medical advisor, Dr. Keith Robinson, our community educator, Dave Henry, Karen Deidemeyer, patient advisor, along with volunteer and author contributors. Most importantly, patients and caregivers we serve across America are also Breathe Strong team contributors, some of whom you will be meeting during our education today. Our presentation goals share to invite you to be part of, we would like to invite you to be part of our toolkit and us part of your toolkit in serving the cardiopulmonary health community of patients, caregivers, and providers. We have a unique opportunity and partnership also with case managers, physicians, skilled nursing facilities, LTACs, sleep disorder providers, HME, and home health. During my career, I've had the opportunity to help develop 4 pulmonary rehab programs and basically 1 sleep lab, and I worked with home health care, and I was one of those strong backs delivering delivery beds back in the 90s, as well as also, before the PPS changes happened, developing a vent program in our nursing facility in Port Charlotte, Florida, with outstanding outcomes as well, until regulations changed. At this point, I'd like to get familiar with just giving you a quick tour. We tried virtually at our Florida Society Respiratory meeting in May to do a lot electronically. It gets very difficult in the hotels, so I want to just share with you a step-by-step when you leave here how you can use our guide, okay? You first go to our website at www.breathestrong.America, and I just wanted to let you know, you just click to education to scroll and view the electronic guide. You can visit the education video and other resources and our contributing authors. Speaking of our contributing authors for resources, we feature Jane Martin, who I've had the opportunity to work for before she became the assistant education person for COPD Foundation. I was a volunteer for her with her group called Better Breathing Life in the early 90s before she joined the COPD Foundation for 10 years, where I also am a state captain even at this time. But Jane authored a great book that I highly recommend to get familiar with called Live Your Life with Hope with COPD. And one of the interesting things we've talked about was outcomes. And one of the things that Jane has a desire, she presented to a cardiopulmonary rehab group in Kansas City earlier this year, and I mentioned to Zach that we would love to help participate in the planning and education process and contribute and help in the upcoming spring event that Zach's working on, because she's working on not only the framework for coping with lung disease, not just COPD, but pulmonary fibrosis and neuromuscular diseases, but also a couple of guides. One is designed to help the navigator, RT, in helping the patient cope. And I just want to let you know that resource is becoming available as well, and I'd be glad to give you information to contact with Jane. Also, there was a book that we gave out yesterday called Thriving Over Lung Disease by Marilyn Klingler. And Marilyn and I've gotten to know each other over the last year, as she gave me a call one day and said, Bob, I really like what your guys are doing. We'd like to offer our book as a help. And she's written a book that is written from, I'm not sure if anyone's ever remembered the book Profiles in Courage by John F. Kennedy years ago. Basically, these are profiles of courage, but a profile of one patient designed by many patients that she's treated. And you go through the guide to get it. It's a great tool for your library. Another one, and just to let you know, not only these are great tools for your library, but we developed education videos with these authors contributing with patients, okay? So we just want to let you know that's a tool. And then the key one is the 7 Healers by Dr. Scott Kennard that we'll be talking about. And what are the principles? What are the daily rituals for living and coping? You'll notice later that I'm talking to you, and I really appreciate the graciousness of Jason and Colleen in assisting me in using this table today, because as a patient, I'm not able to use the podium like I used to. So thank you. I appreciate your help. But I wanted to let you know that the coping for any cardiopulmonary or really life condition is developed, and this is a big transition in our team and development, was the 7 Healers. And I just wanted to let you know that this is basically a key that my original mentor, Dr. Brian Type in California years ago, called daily rituals. But basically, they've been life-changing, and I'm using them every day. And I think all of us are in different ways and might not even be aware of them. But we just want to sharpen the tools for our daily living. And the third one, the fourth one, is a book that I'm really proud to introduce as our most recent one. The Respiratory Therapist as Disease Manager by Harry Lane. And this is a great tool that is designed originally by a respiratory therapist who is a transitional coordinator for a hospital in Jacksonville, Florida, who I met several years ago. And it's being used primarily as a text in 4-year RT programs. And it's got great adjunct resources. But any organization that wants to help develop an in-house program, we want to help develop services for you to help serve others. That value-added approach, pardon me. We want to help add that value-added feature to you and your patients, and I think that this resource will be very helpful. There's one other resource I want to mention that isn't on here that I hope to add as a 5th one, but even as a resource to you, I want you to be aware of. I met this author in September of this year, right before the hurricane hit down in Southwest Florida at a meeting. And it's called Smoke Screening Narratives to Navigate Caregiver Burnout by Jem Damron. And this book, we hope to add in our library. The speaker is a respiratory therapist. The speaker and author, Jem, is in North Carolina. He's an international speaker. He's a respiratory therapist, a bioethicist as well, and a theologian. And I just want to let you know this is really a great book to add to your library because it's anybody into movies, like movies? He uses movies as his key catch to open each chapter, and it's very well designed and developed. And just want to share with you some of the resources we have recently and we hope to add. Now, I want to give you an example of some of the guides, pages in our guides. One of the, take me one second here. One of the important lessons that we learned from our pulmonary rehab friends early was to appreciate our Breathe Strong umbrella of service need. Originally, we started as COPD, Breathe Strong. We transitioned to Breathe Strong America when it was pointed out that pulmonary fibrosis, and I should point out, I was really made acutely aware of this in an office in Tampa, Florida, when I was serving as an Alpha-1 detection coordinator for the state of Florida. And I'm trying to promote education and awareness of Alpha-1 to the managers there in Florida. And my friend Bob, another Bob there in Tampa, reminded me, as a manager, I have to make a decision. I have patient needs on this end and that end. Like Dr. McIntyre mentioned, it's not just COPD. Our patients have about 6 other conditions that they're dealing with. many times on average on a study from the COPD Foundation found years ago. So it's not just COPD they're managing. They're managing their other illnesses as well. And as a manager, you have to make a decision how to use your resources. So he had to decide pulmonary fibrosis here, alpha-1 here, okay? And I understood. So at that point in time, we added the umbrella of pulmonary fibrosis as an emphasis in our guide, as well as COPD, and the understanding of the differences for patients. You'll notice throughout our guide when you go online is that it's written at a third or fifth grade level. And we want to have the same language being communicated from the RT as a patient. And maybe you can consider a mental break from all the jargon that you're dealing with in your daily activity in the hospitals and in the skilled nurse facilities and in the different settings of, hey, I can just talk to the patient in their language, and that's how we want to do it. And we just described what COPD is in general. It's not going to be all-inclusive, but we want to engage, okay? We want to connect, engage, and empower. And alpha-1 and asthma are also areas that we're not forgetting, but we just prioritized. That pulmonary rehab programs in general are dealing with these two groups primarily, pulmonary fibrosis and COPD. Another example is on our 7 steps is step 1 is breathing, okay? And you can only live a few minutes without oxygen. But I just want to illustrate this point, and I don't want to talk down to you and read to you the whole detailed information on how to do pursed lip breathing, but I would like each of you to take a second and sit up straight. Okay. And I'm kind of doing this like I do a support group or our FSRC meeting just together. We're together in this together this morning. So I just want you to put your hand on your abdomen. Okay? And I want you to take a slow, deep breath through your nose, pushing your abdomen out. And then twice as long, gently blow out and pull in. And this is the tip that we always emphasize for patients. And it's probably one of the most important tools, whether you're in the hospital or any other setting, to make sure your patient is the expert at this tool. They would need to be able to draw upon that tool in any setting, okay? Whether it be walking from their car to the pulmonary rehab or to the doctor's office or to the grocery store or, as mentioned earlier, to the mailbox. And again, we try to illustrate and connect and engage in our materials. Also, we mentioned cardiac, and it's very important that the congestive heart failure, pulmonary atrial fibrillation, hypertension be introduced to patients, because how many of your patients have both, okay? And let's help them understand that it's okay. Don't be fearful. The more we can do to break down the barriers of misunderstanding or fear of, oh, here's another condition I have to deal with. Okay, hey, it comes with a turf. That's why we call it cardiopulmonary, okay? We have heart and lung problems. But we try to, and I just want to thank my daughter, Sarah, who is a nurse practitioner in Alaska, to help me in developing this slide. Like Zach and Jean, Breathe Strong America is a family thing too, okay? Okay, and then next, I'd like to just walk you through the 7 healers a second here. You can only breathe a few minutes without air and oxygen. Dr. Kennard, who I met at a COPD Foundation meeting about 11 years ago in Washington, D.C., was presenting about how primary care doctors can be more creative in reaching their patients. We developed a relationship from that, and I spent several hours with he and his dad in his condo in Florida. He's in Texas, but his dad, another physician, is in Florida. And he encouraged me years ago to utilize the 7 healers and gave me permission to translate some of these into the cardiopulmonary health needs, Dr. Kennard, I encourage you to pick up this book. It's a great read, The 7 Healers. For corporate health, he's also done another book called The 7 Numbers, which is great for your health and your organizations that want to make sure there's follow-up. So many times human resources wants to know, well, hey, how do we know our patients are following up on this in terms of, or I'm sorry, not human resources, but your C-suite executives in the hospitals want to know, am I getting benefit? Well, you want to make sure that there are tools there. So Dr. Kennard brings with that. And also, he came from a diabetic standpoint. He was a diabetic, obese physician who was doing all the right things he thought, but is still busy. He had to get a handle on his own health. So he wrote this great book and formed this great organization called Converging Health. And he's a contributing author, and you'll see him in one of our education videos as well. You can only live a few weeks without water, so you need to eat right. Food and water are important, especially water in Tennessee when you're coming from Florida. Excuse me. Without a treatment plan, you'll become sicker. So you need to follow your action plan. And I really want to compliment Carrie yesterday on her presentation of the COPD Foundation Action Plan. That is a fantastic tool, and I'm glad that the Nexus Encore team is utilizing it. I just wanted to mention that I was also at another conference years ago in Miami that I was really made very aware at that time, before I became a patient, of how overwhelmed patients are with action plans of if I have this disease and that disease. So we have an action plan approach that's more general for healthy living for patients with cardiopulmonary health conditions. So it's just a different approach. So without a treatment plan, you're dead in the water. Also, without play and exercise, and this is where pulmonary rehab comes in, but also where active living comes in. Okay, you need to stay active every day because you'll become sick and miserable and depressed. Daily walking, moving around. Now, I admit I've bumped into a few people with my cane. I apologize during this meeting, but I'm trying to move around as much as possible. And I want to thank my family and my team that's helping me be here today. But it's important for all of us to move around. How many people have had a chance to visit that pool here, that indoor pool? I got to tell you, if you don't get a chance, my stealth exercises, as Dr. Robinson calls the stealth exercises, what's your favorite activity? Mine's swimming. So I appreciate having that opportunity here. It's also important, and I think number 6 and number 7 are really, really important to emphasize. Relationships. The speaker on Mentor yesterday did a great job of what's the most important relationship. He presented it, his family team, okay? And I think that team, whether it be your work family team or your home family team, those relationships are so important. As Colleen mentioned earlier, we never met face-to-face until today, but we've had a relationship over the years through our organizations and through our work for mutual goals together. And finding the right healthcare team is that patient's key relationship as dealing with their disease. They need to be given the empowerment. You are in charge. Whether it is firing the pulmonary rehab team and finding another one that meets your needs, or finding another cardiologist like I had to do and to meet your need. But you are in charge. We need to encourage the patient that you as a provider are not responsible for their care. You are helping, you're an encourager, but they are responsible. And I think it was 1998, my favorite Surgeon General, C. Everett Koop, years ago, wrote an article to Reader's Digest at that time that, and this is when Joe mentioned in the time frames of all these changes, and at that point in time, he was emphasizing with the advent and entry of managed care to healthcare, the importance to realize that you, the patient, are responsible for your healthcare. The doctor is not God, okay? He is your teammate working with you. You are to work with your team. okay, and that relationship. But the last one, purpose, purpose is so important. If you don't have a reason to get up in the morning, why get up, okay? And basically, that is that call that also the gentleman that did the mentor talk yesterday, I just want to build upon that thought that he mentioned earlier. And that is, what's your purpose? It may change over the years professionally, and it will, I guarantee you. As illustrated by Joe earlier, our roles may change, but our passion and purpose needs to be constant. And I just encourage you with the importance of, in fact, this is not a list, it's a circle, okay? It's not to be used as, oh, I have to do this and this and this and this. No, you integrate them. In one of our education videos you'll see on our website with, I'll mention to you in a few minutes, the author, Dr. Kennard, mentions to the patient Mary, wow, you're already doing this. It was she actually doing the talk rather than the doctor, because she's already doing it in her life. But it's very important to realize in your, for instance, this morning I took a little time on purpose before I got down here, okay? I needed to spend some time reflecting in my purposes. Many times I go to the first respiratory therapist mentioned in Genesis, who was God, okay? I go to him and get that direction each morning. However you need to do it, you need to establish a way every day to get your bearing, okay? Get your bearings for the day, and purpose is your starting point, but they all weave together throughout the day. And you want to start your day with breathing exercises and getting your air and oxygen going. Then you want to have that heart-healthy diet. It's so important. I'm a meat and potatoes guy from Michigan. Trying to get used to plant-based approach is a challenge, okay? But I got to tell you, you can integrate it. As one of the dietitians told me years ago, you know, you don't have to be perfect. Just move in that direction. Integrate what you can, okay? And just like we've seen with many of our speakers, it's compromise all the time in our life. It might not be perfect on everything, but it's moving towards doing the right thing for my health and to help others. You want to open up your airways to get a good night's sleep. I'm referring many times to that. Might be that COPD patient that needs to take that inhaler before going to sleep, but needs to take it long enough before going to sleep so it doesn't keep them awake because of the effects of the beta agonist. Also, again, emphasizing to stay out of the hospital and stay home where I want to be, I want to make sure that I have that action plan throughout the day. And if I have disease-specific action plans to support it, that's even better. I also want to have fun expanding my lung capacity. I want to have fun with my life. I don't want to be a list of diseases as a patient. And I don't want to be a burden to everyone around me of just focusing on my problem. Well, the father of Bree Strong reminded me that years ago when I had the opportunity as a COPD captain in Tallahassee, Florida, and he was being interviewed. Nick Jones is all of 5'3", and he's being interviewed by the television channel there in Tallahassee, and he said, "Isn't it depressing to deal with COPD?" And Nick, with that twinkle in his eye, looked up and says, "You know, it was a shock when I found out what I had. But then I remembered, you know, the easiest antidote for depression is just go out and help somebody." And while Nick formed the Airheads that met every week, he had a Tai Chi group that met 1 week with his wife Jan, and then they'd have a traditional support group, and then they have Tai Chi and traditional support group. Every week they met, okay? But that was only one of the things he was doing to reach out to people. He did things for kids. He reached out, like a program that I saw on the way up here down in Fort Lauderdale, Southwest Florida. We've had a little storm recently, okay? And I was so amazed when I was invited by a friend of my daughter's on Sunday to visit Mission on a Hoops, a group of 3 to 7-year-olds playing basketball. Well, guess what? That was being done because a young man and his wife said, kids, he was one of those African-American fellows who wanted to be an NBA player but couldn't quite make it, but he's sharing his gifts and helping other young people get the good news of helping others and good habits. And seeing these little 3-year-old boys and girls, and because it was November 2nd, I guess it was, or 1st, it was right before Halloween, right? So it was a Halloween alternative for the kids. They had all their costumes out there in the basketball hoop. I guess what I want to encourage you is that it doesn't have to be any narrow sphere of influence. It could be any sphere of influence that you can help others with. Be the captain of your healthcare team and don't give up on your purpose. Another tool I wanted to share with you, and this is on our electronic version of the guide, is that we found that just like the CAT score for COPD, there's a tool that you can calculate your lung and heart 7-step guide score of how am I doing, okay? Just a self-check, okay, of how I practice my pursed-lip breathing daily. Okay, check that off. Am I drinking enough water? Am I getting enough steps every day? Am I getting sleep? And basically, how am I doing? Feedback, sort of like the gaming thing a little bit, but patients just need to have tools to assist them, and we just want to make, and they can score it. 50 in this ranked scoring system, your lifestyle does not currently support healthy living. Okay, you want to stay above that. Okay, and I just want to share with you, this was all from Dr. Kennard's book, The 7 Healers. Now let's talk about you as navigators, okay? Protocols and pathway. This is also from our book on the RT as the disease manager. It's important to realize that self-management training is the most important task of that care transitional coordinator, or whatever your title is, okay? It's important to encourage self-management, okay? And part of that is, hey, it might be swimming every day to help make sure I'm moving around. Okay, readmission penalties are an impetus for disease-specific control. You've heard about that. So we just have to realize that we're all working around insurance situations, and there are protocols to develop within your organizations. But in the healthcare, I know not that many of you in the hospitals, but I just want to share with you that the RT should be among the leading architects of pulmonary disease protocols in any organization, okay? They need our input wherever you're at. Self-management training, education is necessary, but not sufficient by itself, okay? You have to be aware of learning domains, cognitive, affective, psychomotor. We all know in home care, what if that patient can't handle an MDI? Also, there are different living situations and understanding, the awareness and cultural differences. Holistic communication encompasses these 3 demands, but the major factors of affecting communications need to be appreciated. And I just want to also mention that the engagement here of the patient is active, okay? You want to really interact, whether it be virtually or live. Hopefully, a lot of us are in situations where it might be both, okay, and you might need to balance. And many times we do that with our groups around the country. We'll do virtual and live, just like this meeting is, okay? And we want to elicit illness perceptions. We want to encourage a partnership is the key here. And just want to mention one thing really important. On actively engaging patients, teach back is so important. Have the patient demonstrate whatever it is, whether it be inhaler training, and also I want to applaud the emphasis that Carrie mentioned yesterday on the use of the N-check valve. That is a fantastic tool that will help as an aid to help you in finding the right inhaler for the patient. But you want to encourage that partnership and do teach back. It's so important. Okay, this is another way we just illustrate the action plan. But I want to share some stories now. When you go to our website, you're going to see these education videos. And this is Karen, our patient advisor, and her story. And you'll see that in 1991, she was experiencing shortness of breath at the age of 45. At that time, she was up in Indiana with her family. Then they moved down to Florida. She was diagnosed with emphysema and told to quit smoking in 92. Oxygen in 2003. Started pulmonary rehab in 2007. I should emphasize here that along the way, she had to fire an earlier pulmonary rehab program, okay? Because they wanted to hear more about, or share more about their experiences in their own family than teach the patient, okay? Okay, so I just wanted to let you know that she had to take an active step in finding the pulmonary rehab program that met her need, that would work with her. And again, that's empowering the patient to make those decisions. She became a patient advocate, joined a breathing club, and now for 30 years, she's done a great job. And she's involved, and you'll see in our guide, a lot of different things. She's an advisor to the Defense Department to get the patient's input on health care. Okay, I mean, ALA, all of them, she's involved. But you know what? Karen is a real champion. And one of the things in, I want to go back a second. In the video we had with her, I just want to share with you. Jane Martin, one of our authors, did a little talk on relationships with her. And I encourage you to check that out. Because she shares with you what she had to do with her husband, who is a cardiac patient, while she's a COPD patient, and how they had to work through, it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to be more understanding. And even in the issues in terms of intimacy, okay? I think that it's very important that we get real with our patients. They're responsible, we are responsible for our care, but I just want to let you know that this resource is there for you. And I love her quote here, "I'm loving life and COPD can't stop me," okay? Another patient that I want to share with you is basically this is from our Florida meeting that we did, and we shared a little video of Mary Erickson. Mary Erickson is a interstitial lung disease patient in Arizona, and that group out there, you'll love her video. Okay, but one of the things that she said, how can I help others? She had been an educator in history and arts for 59 years in Arizona State University. But she enjoys really sharing with others, finding tips, and if there's another pathway of service that we want to develop along our services with Breathe Strong America and helping other organizations, it would be a do-it-yourself aisle of service, because she was able to share her story, how she recruited her handyman to create different ways for her to stay more active in her second home in the mountains to get out of the desert. And interesting stories, but I just wanted to mention that's a great education video to look at. I just want to share my story real quickly. At the beginning, this is how I got involved in respiratory. I was a medic in the Air Force in 1967 in Vietnam. And there was a fellow named Larry. And Larry would say, every time you guys in the, we had what we called a casualty staging flight, where we stabilized the patients from the field hospitals before they were air evac'd to the United States or other places. And here I am, a 19-year-old kid, just learning to be a corpsman. And I'll never forget Larry saying, anybody, when you get a burn victim, and they have to be trached to survive, because we had a busy, like O'Hara type of situation there. Lots of planes, and we'd have crashes. And he'd say, there's a bird respirator, okay? Set it on 15, 15, and 15, and call Larry. that was my introduction to inhalation therapy. And I said, I'd like to learn more about that, okay? And that's how I became a respiratory therapist. But now I wear another hat. It's a Breathe Strong hat, okay? Now we are saying, excuse me, my wife's in the crowd, and I got to put it on right. There we go. I want you to know that we are a team. All of us are a team. RTs. Industry. I love the word industry. Home care providers. We're all a team, part of the human team. Okay, and life is full of challenges. You guys are awesome. You've done wonders through COVID, and you're going to do wonders in the upcoming challenges. But I just want to share a little bit what I was going through during COVID, okay? In 2020, that year of COVID, I had a heart attack while on a family vacation in North Carolina. And it was June 2020. There were a few things going on in June 2020. And I was near Asheville, where a lot was going on, okay? And as a patient from Florida, if I needed heart surgery, I really wanted to get back to Florida because I really didn't want to deal with all the stuff that was going on in Asheville. And I was thankfully allowed to get back to Florida. Well, guess what? When I got to Florida, there were more challenges in terms of insurance and everything else, and family support. Bottom line is we had 3 different places I could go for surgery. Home was not good because it was really crazy in Fort Myers at that time in terms of being able to get my heart surgery in a timely manner. Sarasota, where I had been, and I am a part-time consultant RT with their lung health programs, has a great cardiac surgery program. And Orlando, where my daughter lives, had great programs. Bottom line is, I was very thankful. I ended up in Sarasota, Florida, having my surgery. But I still had, after a great surgery, because I had what they call the widow killer or widow maker. I had like 11 occlusions, and I had to have, I think it was five grafts for all 3 vessels occluded. And I had a great cardiac rehab program I started to go through. And I went through as far as I could, but I started having more persistent shortness of breath on exertion. Now, as an RT, I've known years about angina. I thought I knew about it. I didn't know about it, okay? I thought I knew about hypoxemia and hypoxia. After 40 years, I should. But guess what? I didn't. Because hypoxia is not hypoxemia. And all this problem of patients qualifying for oxygen, hey, I can need oxygen and not qualify for oxygen. Or I can need pulmonary rehab and not qualify for it, okay? Bottom line is, I learned one of the lessons that, and I encourage you again with one of our authors, Jane Martin, who's done a wonderful job in her book in the framework I mentioned earlier about her guides. She talks about aloneness versus loneliness. A patient feels alone if they're not being heard. And you struggle with helping your providers understand what you're feeling. Because right now, I have a constant chest tightness all the time. It's much better than it used to be, but I have to have that cane in order to navigate due to my shortness of breath. Okay? And I just wanted to let you know that I had no idea about this until I became a patient. And then in 2021, as I've already maximized my drugs to manage my shortness of breath, and I'm still having a problem of, I'm not sure if it's a golf ball or a softball or a basketball size that I have to overcome every breath, okay? But the medications are not doing it. So I'm on an emergency situation trying to get it, I think it was my 3rd or 4th cath in 6 months, okay, at my home hospital. And I'm always thankful for that cardiologist that took the time to take another look at the chest x-ray, because it had gotten through the radiologist without being identified. And I had a large mass next to my windpipe, along with metastatic changes of an earlier, I already had melanoma 6 years ago, but I not had the situation now where I had metastatic melanoma throughout my body. And it was primarily lungs, liver, the mediastinal area, and lymphs. Well, at that point in time, I was very thankful that I didn't have to go to Moffitt in Texas or Moffitt in Tampa or the Anderson in Texas, but we had a cancer team that was able to, and I get this, the oncologist, her name is Faith Laura Gardner. She's from the Dominican Republic. She spent 3.5 hours with my wife and I going through all the options of how aggressive do you want to be? We said we're going to take, through wise advice of good friends and the confidence that there are great biologics and immunotherapy options out there, I said, let's go for the whole thing. So we took the risk of going combined immunotherapy, which was something that we just want to be as aggressive as possible. And I want to tell you that it worked. And 4 months later, through different tests, I was improving. Still having persistent exertional shortness of breath, so I needed to get that pulmonary referral. I had pulmonary fibrosis ruled out, so I do have stable chronic angina. But my most recent fall 2022 health life updates are as following. In September, I found out I'm cancer-free. And then we had a situation with the life part, okay? And I mentioned that this book that I was in Fort Myers before the storm came. This was a Thursday, Friday meeting. And, you know, just like Colleen is doing with making sure you guys get all your educational materials taken care of. Well, the school that had us there talking and everything, being there, said, Bob, we'll make sure all you guys get your CEUs next week. But it might not be next week because there might be a storm coming our way. That's what we knew on Friday. On Monday, we were battling up our house. And on Tuesday, we'd been through this is our 4th hurricane, but we've been through them before, but not like this one. And we, for the second time, evacuated and went to Central Florida. And the life update is, and I'll share a little bit more at the end about this, but our home is intact. And I thank God for that. Okay? So those are a couple updates that we're going through. Again, just a reminder to go to our website and click on, and I'll be around. You've got my information. Contact me personally if you want one of our guides. I'll be glad to get that to you. But in closing, I want to share a couple thoughts with you. Do I have a couple minutes left? Okay. I'm colorblind, so thank you for making it blue. That's the one color I can tell. Okay. I want to share with you a LinkedIn that I've been given permission to share from one of our respiratory supervisors. Her name is Nicole Smith at Health Park Hospital, Health Park and Medical Center in Fort Myers, Florida. Just if you're not familiar with it, Health Park is a beautiful hospital located about, I'd say, 5 to 10 minutes from Fort Myers Beach. And you know Fort Myers Beach got hit hard with this storm. This is a quote, and please bear with me if I go over here, but I want to share this with you. Resilience is the ability to withstand or recover quickly from difficult conditions. I end every day with reflection. The past couple of nights, my thoughts have wandered to the resiliency of healthcare workers in Southwest Florida. We are inundated with COVID, especially during the Delta wave. At the pandemic's beginning, healthcare workers laid their lives on the line, leaving their families to take care of COVID-19 patients, many of them renting hotel rooms to keep their families safe. Our hospital was so full of sick and dying patients that we expanded our 3 ICUs to 5. Many of our colleagues retired or changed positions due to the mental anguish from seeing so many die alone. Everyone has been tired and burnt out. The past few months, there has been a light at the end of the tunnel. Less and less covert patients, and the wind, and many of them are not as sick and fewer are dying. Then Hurricane Ian hit and ravaged our area. People from Team A took care of the patients during the storm and could see their cars floating in the parking lot due to the massive storm surge. They had to move patients to the hallways to keep them safe, putting on a smile and a brave face for their patients while they were wondering if their homes and families were okay. Team B staff were at home and listening to the 150-mile-per-hour winds shake their homes and rip off their roofs, and water rushing in. Many had to sit on the roofs to keep from drowning in their own homes. After the storm, they reported for duty to take care of our patients. Many of them left with no home and no vehicles, but grateful to be alive, despite what news is being reported, that many more deaths than reported. Just an update. The latest I've heard is that Southwest Florida, including the counties of Charlotte, Lee, and Collier counties, have lost 130 people, 65 in Lee County. One of my coworkers worked Team A and Team B because his house was decimated and car toast from water damage. The only belongings he has now are what he has brought to work. When I asked him what did he need, what could we get for him, his answer was black scrubs and large size 11.5 sneakers so he could work. Even when he was going through so much, his first thought is caring for people. One of my best friends, a pediatric ICU nurse, was in Seattle for a conference when the storm hit. Her 4 kids and husband evacuated her mom's house a few miles up the road. Her kids texting during the storm were frightened, and then she heard nothing for hours. She finally got hold of her husband, and their house and vehicles are both gone. She reached out to Delta and to swap her flight to Augusta so she could get back with her family and me. When she got home and went to her house, co-workers who had just gotten through the worst hurricane in their lives were there to help her and her family clean up and retrieve belongings. So I sit and think that I am in awe. Healthcare workers in Southwest Florida are a special breed. They are. They have resilience. They have true grit. I could not be more proud of the sense of community we've created together in healthcare. That sense of community is what Breathe Strong America is all about also, and what we're all about. Challenges, catastrophes, and in today's life, controversy are part of life. But true love is an act of the will, a conscious decision to do what is best for the other person instead of ourselves. One of my superheroes, Billy Graham. Thank you.